We are live, and I'm gonna start with this. A wise man once said, "It's all about the game and how you play it." Now, when it comes to the game of money, will we see gold prices rise all the way to 50,000 per ounce? Possibly, but there is a catch, and we're gonna talk about all that in this podcast after the intro.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich. Till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. This is where I create content so that you can learn how to make, keep, and multiply money. And when we talk about keeping and multiplying money, gold really has a place in this discussion. And we're going to talk about gold prices today. Is it possible that we may see 50,000 gold per $50,000 ounce, right, per ounce? Well, very possibly, guys, very possibly. And I'm going to have some video reactions to do with you guys. This is why I have this with you. So I will have some video reactions of data, some data that's going to give you a better picture of what I'm talking about. And we're also going talking about there is a catch, right? There is a catch. There is something that I'm noticing, right? I really want to talk to you about that. And it has to do with, are you seeing the title? With possibly the new world order that we're having already being implemented. So I'm going to be sharing with you some data as well as on the form of video reactions and with my personal observation that I've been listening. I've been gathering data from many different places, news articles as well from different countries. And I'm starting to see a picture, right? A picture that is forming that could be favorable for gold, but it could also have serious impact on the populations. And again, the better we are, the further we can see in the past, the further we can see in the future. And we're going to need to be doing that as good investors to understand what's the best route we need to put our money in and anticipate the next move, anticipate the next five move that we can see happen in the world. And the better you could do that, the better you can flourish from your investment. So with that said, before we start, let me say a salute to Sophia Sharif. Thank you for being here with the like button. And sorry, guys, I do start later than I anticipated. Also, my life basically starts after my kid go to sleep. And I always underestimate the time it's going to take me to finish stuff, but we're still here. I got to do whatever I can to deliver on Wednesdays and Sundays, and I wanted to connect with you too. So thank you for being here, Sophia Sharif. Salute to you, Mr. Peter Investor M, one of our very few members here. And if you want to support this channel, YouTube really doesn't push the algorithm. I'm not getting noticed on the algorithm. I don't know if it's because of the topic that I discussed or I'm not making it kind of like season enough, right? I'm not making it too entertaining enough or talking about rap stars or anything like that. So it's anything you can do to help support this channel. It really helps. And Peter Investor is a great supporter, a member of this channel who joined. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And salute to you, Wally. Thank you for being here. The woman who doesn't exist to you. Oh boy, got the intro on fleek. Thank you very much. And salute to you. Nice to see you here. And let me see. All right, guys. So let's get into it. I'm going to try to keep it relatively short, but we got to get it to the point. And I'm going to start with some data in the form of video that we'll be sharing. And I want to share with you some data in the first part that's going to prove you why we could see gold price soaring. And based on my own personal estimation, by the time this whole cycle ends, we could see $50,000 per ounce, right? We could see, but how long this cycle will last, when it this cycle lasts, this is where it's flu. We don't know yet. We'll have to see. And there is many different factors that comes at play, especially governments printing money, especially the war, right? Currency war that could happen. There is also economic war. You've seen what happens with Russia and Ukraine, so all that could have its play as well in what we're currently seeing. But we're going to discuss about all that today. Salute to you, Sunbreeze 322, and we're gonna be talking about gold today. And without further ado, let me share with you what I have. So, this is Mike Maloney. He actually runs a company called goldsilver.com or gold and silver. And he's basically a merchant that sells precious metals. The reason why I have huge respect for this, there is also Peter Schiff who does the same thing with his company as well. But the reason why I prefer Mike Maloney because he has a more down to earth view of gold and cryptocurrencies, whereas Peter Schiff is clearly going after Bitcoin for the sake of selling more cryptocurrency or more gold, right? But also, Mr. Mike Maloney is responsible for one of the greatest content when it comes to financial education online. He has a series called The Hidden Secrets of Money, which is a series of 10 videos, documentary videos, about 30 minutes each. But man, oh man, these are must watch. I've talked to many economists that studies like masters, PhDs, right? They go through this course or to not a course, this video free on YouTube, and the lesson that Mike Maloney is sharing about money, right? About the energy of money, the flow of money, understand geopolitics just from this alone. He didn't necessarily talk about geopolitics, but almost everything I knew back in the days about geopolitics is from deciphering the information that he was able to share for free, right? And I've speak with many people who have PhDs and they didn't even know the information that he was sharing. So these 10 videos that he shared are more valuable than 4 years and study global economy, macroeconomic. And this is again, there is Ray Dalio who has a lot of videos on principles talking about the global economy, but Mike Maloney is definitely one content online who's very precious, guys. This guy's content is very precious. So I definitely recommend you guys to check his Hidden Secrets of Money, right? But today we're going to react to one of his videos that he released maybe I think last week, the 11th March 11th, where he talked about the truth about inflation, oil price, and Russia. Mike Maloney. But the reason why I want to share that is because some of the stats that he's going to share here is going to actually be encouraging to see if you're a gold investor. And I started buying gold, with pair with cryptocurrencies. I made a video about that earlier this week. But let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it and see what he has to say. In the meantime, let me know if you can hear. I'm going to play it. Press a 1 if you can hear it, or 2 if you cannot. But it should be all right. Let me play it now.
Video on fiat currency, inflation, and real money. This is a chart that Jeff Clark.
All right. Was that good? Was that good? Just making sure you guys can hear. And also throughout this video, I'll have to pause it, but I'll add the link in the description so that you can check it as well. Definitely an interesting video. I'm not going to play the entire thing. Just about I think about 4 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes in, I'm going to play in. That's enough video. That's enough data that we're going to talk about, but I want to play through it. Let's go.
Created just yesterday, I believe. And it's the year-over-year inflation each month. So February of 2021 compared to February of 2020, 1.7%. And then it rose up to...
All right. So right now we're looking at the chart it's basically a full year. We're talking about February 2022, February 2021, and then each month you can see the inflation rate. Now, I remember I start my video today saying that yes, gold will potentially rise to 50,000, but there is a catch. There is a catch, and I'm going to be talking about this, but I want you to remember this chart right here because we're going to bring that up. at the end, because I'm going to be talking to you about a whole different perspective of what's happening in the global economic, like geopolitical dynamics around here that I don't hear anyone talking about. Actually, I do hear only one person online that I heard talking about that, but I want to bring it to your attention because things are going to get messy, to say the least, but very interesting as well. But I want you to pay attention to that, right? Last year, February, we're looking at 1.7% in inflation rate. And again, all these numbers are fake. They changed the way that they calculate inflation. But according to the new way of calculating inflation, there's still a noticeable rise from 1.7% inflation all the way to 7.9. And why is this inflation happening, guys? It's simple. It's because of what happened in 2020. We printed so much money that it is inevitable. There is no way around it. We have to go to inflation. It's just how math works. More money you print, the more the prices has to rise to match the money that was printed, and so on. And remember, 40% of the entire reserve on the entire currency that was floating in the world was printed just in the year 2021. So it's normal that you're seeing inflation happening right now, and this is just the beginning. All right, let's play to it.
To 4.2%, and the Federal Reserve said it will be transitory. It's a very temporary phenomenon. Prices are going to level out. Don't worry about it. And 5%, 5.4%, 6.2%.
Do you guys remember when the news was saying, "Hey, we're getting transition, we're going some inflation happening," but it was all transitory? Do you guys remember that? Let me know in the comment if you do. But the news was, it was Powell, like basically that was talking about that on the news, Jerome Powell, saying that yeah, it's all transitory, and I knew it was a lie. I knew it was a lie because again, it's math, right? And that shows you the math doesn't really know how the economy works. The more money you print, inflation has to rise up to match the money that was printed. Why? Because if you had a $10 in your pocket and everyone had $1, well, technically you would be wealthier than everyone else. But if I print enough money and give everyone else $10, that means your $10 is not worth much, right? But what you would do instead is you would rise your $10 by 10, right? If you, let's say you had a product, you were selling it at $10, everyone had $1. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to rise your price now from $10 to $100, right? That's going to make it equal so that you still had a 10 like times 10 margin at the beginning of the inflation, and then at the end you're still going to have on times 10 factor. That's what matters. That's what I'm saying here. If you print everyone and you give everyone money, you need to rise the price so that the margin is still the same. And it seems that the economists or the people in power don't understand that, or they pretend not to understand, right? But last year they were saying that inflation was going to be transitory. It's the same thing that happened in 1971 when President Nixon said, we're going to break the back of inflation. We're going to cut the ties from the currencies with gold. It's going to be a temporary measures, and it's never temporary. So keep that in mind, and let's get to it.
And last month, February of 2022, instead of 1.7%, we've got 7.9%. So if you're tracking prices, it went up from 2020, 1.7% plus 7.9%. Anyway, this is the CP lie. It's not. If you look at gasoline and groceries, it is much, much, much higher than this. It's part of the.
Absolutely. And this is why I'm saying this is a lie, guys. It's the way that they calculate it so that they can control the numbers and rate of information, right? They control how they feed the information to you. They control what numbers you see. So they calculate a different way, right? Salute to you, Sophia. I see that you're here sitting in front of the class. Thank you very much. And salute to you as well, Sunbreeze. Is that right? I'm excited to be here as well, learning. Yes, we're going to talk about some interesting things that you will not hear on the media, but I'm going to give you a whole different perspective that's going to make you see the world a different way, and also plan ahead of what's happening, especially if you're invested in gold. You want to hear what I have to say today. But let's go through the data right here. and I just got out of the groceries, guys. Just got out of the groceries, right? As of this time last year, if I had $150, I would have more than enough to buy everything that I need for the week, for my baby, for my wife, for me, everything, right? Now I need $65 more to have just enough. Remember last year, this time, I had needed 150 per week to be like more than enough, right? Every time I put 150 in my account, I would go to groceries. I still had more, like $30 to more. Now, yeah, I needed a lot more than 150. I need about $65 on average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but on average, I need about a bit over $200 just to have enough. Just to have enough. So if I wanted to have more than enough, for sure, I would need about $100 to be sure. But yeah, this is the effect of inflation, right? This is the effect of inflation. And when you do ask Biden what happens, why is the inflation happen? Say, hey, blame Putin. We're gonna talk about that later today. But interesting, right? These numbers are fake, right? 7.9. This is not what's happening in real life. My grocery cost per week did not rise 7.9%, right? That's what I'm saying here. So the don't the at least what you can pay attention to is the trend, right? Let's say inflation was at 5-6% last year, and now it's closer to 20%. Well, it's still a rising trend, and that's what I want you to pay attention to.
Lie that you get to tell with fiat currencies. So let's take this back a little bit further. Here's CPI year over year going all the way back to 1992. And what you see is this is the sharpest rise in the chart. There was one time where it fell close to a similar scale in a similar time frame, but that was falling. That was the crisis of '08, and we went into deflation. The zero line here is deflation.
So CPI, I think it's Customer Price Index year over year. And then they say that it went all the way down. Surprisingly, that's about the financial crisis of 2028, 2029, right? So it's kind of like the same thing that happened here. Why did things drop? It's because no one was spending money, right? Remember when what happened around here? Lockdown. No one was spending money. No one was going out to shop. So money is not circulating in the economy, right? So same thing here.
This is just vicious, and you can see that as soon as people sort of got tired of the pandemic and they actually started spending some of the currency that had been created because of the pandemic, we're at 7.9% year over year. Now,
all right. So very something that you didn't mention, but I've been listening to him for a while. I've been observing the economy. I kind of know what happened, and I'll explain to you in details what happened here. But before, let me say very quickly. I see gold, 150 plus $60. Yeah, 65 actually. That was today alone. I was making the calculation. So yeah, just to have enough. Again, just to have enough, not to have more than enough. Whereas last year, this time, 150 was more than enough. And we're talking about 150 Canadian, right? Which is maybe 120 US dollars, maybe 115, $20 US. But yeah, that's basically where we are right now. Sophia Sharif, I had no idea that the more money printed meant inflation. Yes, I know that. Let me see. I know folks lost money, but I hated stimulus for US. So much going on for working people. Absolutely. This is how the government steal wealth from you. This is a different kind of tax that you don't necessarily see, but it's there, right? The more money that is printed means more national debt for the country, which technically they will going to raise taxes so that they can pay the debt. That's one way they steal your money. On top of that, because there is more money printed, the prices have to adjust to because what happens if the money is printed and then the price stays the same? You have a business, you bought this for, let's say, you bought this for $5, right? You bought this for $5. Then you selling it for $8, making $3 profit. You take in $1 to put in your pocket, $2 to run your business. Every time you sell something like this, you're in business, right? But then um this is what you're doing right now. And then 40% of all the money that was circulating since the country's inception all the way to 2019, 40% of all that money was printed in just 1 year. And when the money is being printed, it's being offered in stimulus package. Businesses, like big businesses, Fortune 500, get access to this money. They get you can get that to stimulus, they get that to loans, they get that to many different ways, right? Some businesses are crashing, other businesses are getting richer. Somehow this money find its way to Elon Musk, to Jeff Bezos, right? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And then now, for the most part, that money finds its way to a large amount of people in the population, which and now has more money in the power, right? More money to buy things. If you keep the price the same, you have a lot more money, you have a lot more people, right, that are buying the same thing. It goes back to the same fundamental of the economy: supply, demand. Printing money, giving more money to people creates what? More demand. Now people have more money, then they're gonna wanna ask to buy stuff. Creates more demand. But you still have the same supply. You still have the same supply. Your supply did not increase by 40% when the money was printed 40%, right? The supply stayed the same, then more people have more demand. What do you have to do to keep up with the demand and supply? You have to raise your price as well. And that's why inflation happens, right? So it's a simple concept: supply and demand. It's the building block of economy, but that has its ripple effect between me and you, a transaction, between a company and a company, between a country and a country, and then you have it has its effect around the world, right? It's a building block of the economy, but it has serious impact. So the more money you print, more money is circulating for a limited amount of supply. You have to raise the price of the supply so that it can stay the same. If before you printed, there was only 5% of the population who could buy it, after you print it, you still need to make it the equation equal. 5% of the population will still be able to buy it. And for you to do that, you're going to have to raise the price where only 5% of the population can buy it. I'm giving a random example here, but at least you understand what I'm saying. All right, so let's see. Inflation double digit, absolutely. What's up, K Business Podcast? How are you doing? Is your email address public? Yes, I have it on my YouTube channel somewhere. No worries, reach out. Is it almost like a company issuing more outstanding shares, which drops the stock price, and the opposite happen when they buy back shares, which increase stock price? Yes, yes. I mean, I think you knew. I think you knew when you were asking that question, Mr. Peter Investor. But that's a great analogy. That's a great way of seeing it. And yes, why? Because when a company print more shares, there is more shares available, more supply, right? And if the demand stays the same, price drops, right? It's the same relationship between economy, and that's what happens here. All right. So let's see, going back to this video here. Now they're talking about customer price index, and what I wanted to bring to your attention here is the money was printed in 2020, right? But we did not see inflation right away. The reason why we did not see that is because there is something called the velocity of money. The velocity of money is a scenario where if I have $10 in my pocket, I give it to a taxi driver. Is the taxi driver is going to give it to someone else, or is going to stay in the taxi driver's wallet for a month or two, right? The faster the taxi driver give that money to someone else, the higher the velocity. The longer the taxi driver hold the money and not spend it, the less the velocity. And what happened in 2020, especially when the lockdown happened, people were not spending money. There was a low velocity. So you had a high money being printed, low velocity. Therefore, the price was not reflecting in inflation. Why? Because although the money was printed, there was no demand. You see? It's the same thing again here. Wealth engineering, we're going to make building wealth made simple. To building wealth, you need to understand the economy, because that's where your wealth is going to come from. It's from the economy. You're going to get some of that, right? But that's basically how it is, guys. Simple terms. The money was printed, being spread it all over the place, but there was no inflation at the beginning. Why? Because there was no demand. People were locked down, they were not spending money, etc. Once people started spending money going outside, then the demand increased, right? Now they're seeing the demand increase with all the money available. Then they're like, okay, we have to adjust the price. And the more the people are coming out, the more you're seeing the demand increase, and the more people have to adjust the price to meet the demand. And by factoring all the money that was printed, which is why you see this graph is jumping so high. And when we go back in the last 20 years, almost 30 years, you haven't seen a spike like this before. Why? Because nowhere in the last 30 years that we have printed 40% of the entire currency supply in just 1 year. So this is just the beginning, guys. Even in their own counts, we're going to be double digit in no time. And trust me, in the real way of calculating inflation, is going to be well over 20%, probably 30 at some point. We'll know and see. But with that said, let's keep going with the video. Oops, sorry.
We're at 7.9% year over year. Now, Marin Katusa of Katusa Research, who Jeff Clark had worked with a long, long time ago, produced this chart, and it's the S&P Commodity Index versus the S&P 500. So
all right,
you've got.
So very quickly, S&P 500 is just an easy way to say, hey, the 500 companies or the best companies of the world. Basically, they're on the. It's a way to track the best Fortune 500 companies, right? All of them, putting that in you the average, and then you look at the price. If they're doing well, the economy is doing well. If they're not doing well, the economy is definitely not doing well. And then the S&P community is the same thing for commodity price. So commodity can be cattle, can be corn, can be oil and gas, right? Can be also precious metal, because we need that for industrial application, like circuit boards, for example. Silver and gold are used for that. But and anything that we use right now in these days, it's going to be more circuit boards, which means the more futuristic our society evolved to, the more we're going to need circuit boards, and the more gold and silver will be precious, in terms of the more valuable they will be, right? So interesting graph right here. We're looking at it since the 1970s, right? With the oil crisis, Gulf War, financial crisis. Now, this is a very interesting graph, right? Very interesting graph, because what we are seeing very quickly is when there is wars and crisis, we get a spike. And what are we looking at here? We're looking at equities are expenses, commodities are cheap, but basically we're looking at the ratio between the commodities prices and stock prices, right? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a ratio between commodities versus stocks, right? So when things are going well, commodities going low, and when things are going high, not well, like financial crisis, Gulf War, and all that, commodity prices going high. And remember, gold and silver are part of that commodity. So let's listen.
At their commodities versus, in the 500 is really the equities. And equities are expensive, commodities are cheap. So this is commodities priced in equities, basically. And what you see here is that we are still at the lowest point in this chart, except for just the past year or so. This is the beginning of a long-term trend. I've got charts that go back a few hundred years on this, and it swings back and forth like a pendulum. And there is a cycle to it, certain periods, up, down, up, down, up, down. This has a long way to run. If you look at the time scales, this is only a few years. Here's 70, like 73. Then we had the crash of 74 in the stock market. And that's basically what caused this. But you can
Take note, guys. The crash of the stock market that happened within a year, and then that rise the price of commodities very high. Take notes, right? Why am I out of the stock market, guys? What since last year I've been out of the stock market. What am I doing instead? Buying cryptocurrencies. At some point, I may buy something else, and then we'll see. Shout out to Snuggles who wants me to drop the link, but he won't show up, so therefore I won't drop the link. But shout out to you. Thank you for your eyes here, and please hit the like button as you're here. And let's see what else is going on here in the chat. Um, let's see. Cashflow Hunter, how are you doing, man? What's up? What's up? Consumption price increase, but no tax. Oh man, I just love you listening to you. I mean, reading your comments, man. Yeah, no tax deduction for us, and also your salary would not increase at the same rate as the inflation are rising, and you have seen how fast inflation rise just year over year. Is your salary rising at the same rate, right? So I can tell you right now, last year I definitely felt a lot richer than I am right now, even with my crypto gains. I'm like, all right, it's not the same, right? Gas is going up, uh, groceries going up, everything's going up, right? So more income just makes you feel like normal now, not just a bit richer. But anyway, great comment right here. Let me see. That's a conversation in between you guys. Commodities equal futures market. Yes, great point. Absolutely. Um, and Crypto Farm Diary. How are you doing, sir? Thank you for being here. This is a long-term play for those who want to be in long term, and it may be time to put some money in stock market. Hmm. I I definitely agree it's a long term play, but you know what? I don't think it's the time yet to put money in the stock market. And not me. I know people like Kevin. What's his name? What's his name? Meet Kevin. He sold all his stocks. Now he's buying back his stocks again. I think it's the wrong timing. Selling his stocks was the best timing that he could have done. But buying it back, we're not done yet. We're not done yet, guys. This is just the beginning. And we might see the real effect happen next year after the election, midterms election. We'll see. But what you can do, for example, right now, maybe invest in more commodities, stable coins, because as you see here in the graph that we're talking about here, there is patterns, right? There is cycles. And based on the cycle right now, just the inflation alone, whenever inflation rises, it's an indication that you're going to have to rise the price of commodities, right? And money, all right, are increasing, more money in the market. You have to increase the rise of resources. This price is going high. It's eventually that the gold price will go high as well. It's a matter of time. But there is a catch. There is a catch, and we're going to talk about it today, right? There is a catch. But great comment, and thank you for being here. Hope to see you more often. And please hit the like button as you guys are here. Tax season, do not care about our purchase power. Absolutely. Just busy to buy some put. Yes, we'll see. All right. So, very great point that he brought up here, right? We're seeing that if you had to convert your stocks into cash, and then you buy the cash with commodities, then around this price right here, I guess you could say you would have more bang for your buck if you had converted your stock price into commodities, right? Let's say you were selling your stocks and then you buy gold instead, you would have more bang for your buck. Now, at around something like this, then this is where gold will be super expensive as compared to the stock value, meaning gold is getting too much value in the price of stocks, and then you would basically buying an overvalued gold. You don't want to buy at the top of the cycle. You want to buy at the bottom of the cycle. And what is basically letting you know right now, especially with the indicator of watching inflation rising month over month, this is a perfect indicator, and you can see it right here. There's a spike already. So we're getting ready to see some big action on the precious metal. And there is big factors in the world economy right now that's going to play, that's going to add more data to this, that's going to have more factors to this. But I wanted to share that with you. Let's see what he has to say.
See this cycle that goes on. This will be a long-term trend, but I have a feeling that this is going to rise very fast. You can see that there are some times where it rises a tremendous amount in just a couple of years. So if this is 1 and it goes to 8 or 10, you're going to be able to get 10 times more stocks for the commodities that you sell, that you are invested in when you go to sell them. Now, gold and silver are part of this.
Guys, did you hear what he said? This is game right here. And this is one of the things I teach on my course, Wealth Engineering. This is I base my principle from wealth engineering a lot from his philosophy. A lot from his philosophy, right? But for the untrained eyes or untrained ears, this comment right here may go unnoticed. So going back to your comment, Mr. Crypto Farm Diary, he's not saying that's not the best time to buy stocks right now. What he is saying here is if you convert to commodities and then you sold your commodities at the top here, then the money that you're going to have in return will be able to buy 7, 8, 10 times more stocks than you would have had you started at the bottom. You see what I'm saying? That's what he's saying. And understanding this pattern, understanding these cycles is a great way to navigate the wealth cycle. It's you move towards the next big thing that's about to blow up. You keep up your purchase power, you multiply your purchase power, and then you transition at the top of one cycle, you transition to another cycle. I talk a lot about this. I showed many examples of my course in great details. But to the untrained eyes, this would just go over your head. But I wanted to bring that to your attention because he still dropped it on this free video right here. But this information that he dropped is worth so much money, guys. So much money. Me, the whole reason why I made a lot of money since 2020, 19, 20, 21, it's because I understand very well what he just said. All right. So pay attention to things like this, guys. These things don't go unnoticed. Let's pay.
These commodities in that index. However, gold and silver are also money. They're not just a commodity, and they are going to way outperform the rest of the commodities in what is coming. So,
all right, that's basically what I wanted to play from Mike Maloney today. Basically, that sounds bullish for gold, right? Bullish. And for the most part, I agree with him. I agree that we will be bullish. Where gold is one of the safer play to go, and there is much more gain to make if you go with silver as opposed to gold. There is more demands for silver. It's cheaper, right? More demands. And also, it's so cheap right now, about what? In the $20s, that the sky is the limit. There's much you can multiply your money a lot faster and silver. And the minute gold start ramping up, silver will start ramping up as well. But playing it both side is good. Me, I love to be able to match my cryptocurrencies and my precious metal together. Shout out to Gold Money. I always talk about that, and I no longer have the service. But now I'm doing it the same thing with packs. I'm going to be making an unboxing video on my Visa card with crypto.com and how I plan on using the gold basically and be able to sell that to my Visa card so I can spend it without actually worried about storing it, holding it. I'm a millennial, right? I'm lazy. I don't want to be carrying like a vault in my house and being worried about people are going to break it. But hey, if there is a way to make money on gold as well, why not? And right now it seems to be heading towards the best place to move. But my argument, my thesis for today is yes, gold will be a good play, especially in times of uncertainty, especially in times of high inflation. And we know that this is just the beginning. Now more people are coming out to spend. We're seeing the effect of inflation, and this is just the beginning. But what we also know, guys, is there is we talk about that with Ray Dalio, right? there is the changing world order. What happened in the world order when they're changing is conflict, right? Conflict happens, war happens, and we're kind of seeing it already displaying in our eyes. But as Mrs. Hillary Clinton said one day, never waste a good crisis. And they're using this crisis to implement a lot of things that they want to implement in a new world order, in a changing world order. And I want to give you an example of where we're heading. Now, whenever we're having a fight between empires, there is always a loser and a winner, right? There is always the declining empire, there is always the rising empire, right? And the world seems to be going towards the philosophy of the rising empire. Now, let me show you very quickly indication that we're already in a changing world order, and there is a reason why I'm sharing that with you. We're going to be discuss that towards the end to understand the catch to gold rising. Gold possibly could rise, but there is a catch. There is a catch, and we're going to be discussing that. I can't wait to get to it. But let's go to the next piece of content I have for you guys. It's from Mr. Rethinking the Dollar, great YouTube channel, great brother, providing lots of knowledge. Rethinking the Dollar, obviously, is a channel that talks about currency, about holding your purchase power. Great name for a channel. Actually, let me hit my like right here. And yes, I'll add the video link as well. But basically, he made a video the other day, a stream, very short, 16 minutes, where he was talking about a piece of news that happened. And he also had a report on his website that you can read as well. This is the new digitized Ukraine, the first country to implement World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Now, World Economic Forum, they've been talking about the Great Reset for many years, and their plans is around 2030. So whatever is going to happen by 2030, we're going to have the big reset, meaning the change of world order to the new world order. And we're already seeing some, call it for experiment or implementation of that. And they're using the Ukraine war to start doing it. So the reason why I'm sharing you that is because to show you where the trend is going, and understand what happens in between, right? War can happen in between. We've already seen that. But let me play that to you so that you can have a picture of what's coming.
It's from the government. It's official documentation from the government in Ukraine.
Sorry.
And it's quite lengthy.
Sometimes I listen to my stuff in like 2x. So that, but let's play to it.
I'll just thumb through it, save you the headache, because the two primary buzzwords is in the title itself. I'm going to butcher it, of course, but I'll do the best I can. But as the guy says here, this is from December of 19th of 2021. As it says here, it says, today, the project e-Patrimuk, correct me if I'm wrong, and the DIA application has officially launched how to get your 1,000 hryvnia, which is the Ukrainian currency. So two key words here I want to highlight, shine more light on, let you guys do your homework. This word here, e-Patrimuk, whatever, is important because that is a new digital representation of the hryvnia currency that is being used right now, and it has all the programmable features in it of a CBDC with a time expiration.
Yeah. You guys heard it? They're talking about CBDCs. They're talking about electronic currency, right? And then CBDCs is central bank digital currency. So basically, this channel, Rethinking the Dollar, what is, I don't think he talks about it a lot, but he's already telling you that, hey, this is what Ukraine is already working on implementing right now. They're legalizing cryptocurrencies, right? We're talking about that in my video earlier this week. And then now they're basically putting a new system out there that's going to digitize their currencies and CBDCs, right? This is the programmable money. That's what's coming, programmable money. So after we go from the dollar, US dollar, which is the world reserve currency, we're going to have another type of currency that's going to replace it. Usually based on history, whatever type of currency we transition to usually is backed by gold, right? And if that follows the same trend this time, gold is going to the moon, right? Usually we have a currency that is backed by gold. it is serve as a way to reassure the world that, hey, we need some monetary stability. Everyone can agree that gold has huge potential for industrial value, huge value out there. Gold has been used as money for since the Roman times, so why not? So it's always happens whenever an empire uh, that dominate the world transition, and then they go through all the cycles of an empire. One of the last cycle is they kind of like split the wealth, they spread it around to the you had a only a small percentage of the population that had all the wealth. So it usually start with a revolution. It could be peaceful, it could not be, but it's usually a matter of taking the wealth from everyone, spread it to the population, like that. What happened to la Révolution Française, 1791, right? If my history is right, a perfect example of that. The world was transitioning from the monarch uh, system to spreading the wealth to everyone and make sure that everyone was equal, right? Now, so same thing. We're going to a new system, the big reset, right? The big reset that the World Economic was mentioning. You could say from the French perspective, the big reset was in 1790, 91, when they were going to the revolution of transitioning from one system of monarch kings and queens and all that had all the power, all the wealth, and the population had none. Whenever you get to a scenario like that, there is a big reset that happens, and then a new system is implemented, and now you're talking about programmable money. So that's the new system that's that- which is the philosophy of the rising empire, right? Remember I was telling you that earlier. The rising empire always was going to be at the top of the world currency, usually has its way around the world, right? And I guess the World Economic Forum sees this happening, and they're like, let's make it as peaceful as possible and just sell it to the public so that they can just willingly accept it, as opposed to fight for it and impose it on everyone. But this is where we're heading, right? And it's coming to a theater near you guys. But let's just listen to what's happening in Ukraine right now, and let's get more details.
Date, programmable fee,
I'm gonna rewind it a little bit so you could get it.
whatever. It's important because that is a new digital representation of the Hivnia currency that is being used right now. And it has all the programmable features in it of a CBDC
Mhm.
with a time expiration date, the places you can use it, and the like. And then the DIA application here is another keyword because that is an actual app that was rolled out well before the lockdowns. So this was a part of the plan well before we were introduced to the health situation that's used as a cover up for the world. But those two words are key. So I'm going to dive further into those words and let you guys know where this is heading. So what exactly is the DIA application? So when you type in DIA into Wikipedia, it tells you just basically what it is. And I'll read it briefly and then add more to it. It says DIA, which means action in Ukrainian. It says is a mobile app, a web portal, and a brand of e-governance in Ukraine. E-governance, new terminology. Expect to hear more of that in the West. It says launched in 2020, to be more specific, in February of 2020. The DIA app allows Ukrainian citizens to use digital documents in their smartphones instead of physical ones for identification and sharing purposes. The DIA portal allows access to over 50 governmental services. 50 governmental services. So basically,
E-governance, guys. Again, if you want to know exactly what's happening right now, go look at what happened in China since last year. They've been going through with the social credit. They've been going through also their digital yuan. Digital yuan, they've been experimenting with that. And hey, they're getting ready, guys. They're getting ready for, to be honest with you guys, they are ready for the reset because they have everything in set. They have been buying gold for the last 10 years. Them in Russia have been buying gold in the last 10 years, and they have made some sort of financial plumbing to be able to do business without bypassing the US. Right. So they are ready, guys. And things like this will eventually lead to a clash between the US and did I see this Carl Black with the red dragon? Things like this will make an eventual clash with the red dragon, which is why what's happening right now in the world is just the beginning. We're not going to it's not going to go as easy and fast as we think it is. It's going to escalate to a lot more things, and I'm going to give you more reason why it's going to escalate. But what we're seeing, the result of that is after the war happens, as the dust settle, the new system that is being implemented in the country is the e-governance that has that's going to be followed by electronic money, electronic documents, right? Where can you spend that money? Where can you not spend that money? And trust me when I say this, if you don't play ball, your money will be deactivated. And China is already experimenting with that. All right. So that's what's coming to a country near you. It's already in Ukraine right now. And I'm sure it's going to be in Canada next because Canada has been pushing very fast for this, very fast. And let's listen.
Basically, the entire infrastructure of the Ukrainian government has now been digitized and rolled into an app where all citizens will have to interact with that app in order to engage their government.
Mhm.
Pay attention to that. Next one here says, eventually the government plans to make all kinds of state person interactions available through the DIA.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll go back here. It says DIA was first presented September 27,
You can go
2019.
check it out later. He also has a whole report on the new digitized Ukraine, talking about the more in detail than that. I just wanted you to hear this to understand, basically to understand what is going to be the next currency, right? My prediction is whatever currency is going to be, it's going to mix cryptocurrencies controlled by central banks with maybe a basket of currencies paired with gold. It's going to be some version of that with gold. In the past, we always had a new type of currency for the new empire, the new system, paired with gold. It's the cycle that goes on. We start with gold, we lose gold as a form of money, then we go with paper currency until we crash, until the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That creates civil unrest, that creates global unrest. And as we crash, we decide to cancel all that. You lose the world status. The world status goes to someone else, aka back in the days it used to be England that was the declining empire, and then USA was the rising empire. Now it's the USA that is the declining empire, and China is the rising empire. Hence the thumbnail you saw. But the philosophy of the winner, the philosophy of the rising empire, is already being sold to the public as so that they can accept it willingly. But 2030, by this time, 2030, it seems all things are converging towards a new form of money being implemented. So whatever it's going to be, I think gold will have to be would have to play part in it. It's just going to be something like PAX, where it is backed by gold, but it is in a form of cryptocurrencies. It is not going to be controlled by a public company or private company. It's going to be controlled by government, central government, and like not Federal Reserve, sorry, CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading. So this is where we are right now. We are right now as lots of inflation, all right, month to month rising. Shout out to Mr. Mike Maloney. Remember, we reviewed that at the beginning. Let me show you again. Month to month, inflation rising. When inflation rise, the price of commodity rise, the price of grocery rise, the price of oil rise. Hence, the price of gold and silver rise as well, which shows you this graph right here. Crisis, gold high. Gulf War, gold high. Financial crisis, um, gold is rising. Commodity prices in general, right? So same thing is going to happen here, and we're just at the beginning of the cycle, right? But there is a catch. But before I talk about the catch, let me Let me go very quickly in the chat because I've been slacking a bit. A salute to you. She stole my thunder. How are you doing? Here is on ETF to speculate on commodities. GSG. All right. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. ETF. I'll check it out. Me personally, I'm all in cryptocurrencies for a reason, but uh, have fun if you. But I'll check it out for sure. From monarchy to republic, yes, and then we're going from republic to dictatorship. The Red Dragon and the Bear, shout out to you. How are you doing, Talk with Tori? Just the beginning. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And please hit the like button as you come in, guys. Start learning the barter systems. Absolutely. Hey, it's going to be cryptocurrencies is basically the barter system on a digital version, right? So we're going to have a form of barter in digital world. So yeah, that's where we're heading. Greetings, well done, Janine. Shout out to you, Melissa. I haven't seen you in the streets for a while. Happy to see you back. Salute to you. And let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. All right. Let me now I gotta remove my headphones because I'm done with video recording, right? I gotta I gotta look at you in the eyes as I say this. Guys, so when there is a declining empires are desperate, and desperate times calls for desperate measures. All right. Now, one of the things that history has taught us, shout out to Ray Dalio for his video Changing World Order, is there is often clash that happens. Often. Clash between the rising empire and the falling empire. But sometimes, right? Sometimes before we get to the eventual clash, last time this happens, we had World War One, we had World War Two, right? And now we have a pretty big empire, arguably one of the biggest empire of our time up until this point, that if that is on its way down. Now, what happens when an empire goes down? They lose access. They Exactly what happened in the 1970. They cut ties with gold. They cut ties with real money so that they can print more money and increase their military. Why they have such a big military? It's because they want to go get resources from other people, conquering worlds, right? Conquering different civilization, right? It's just human nature. Don't say that you wouldn't do the same thing. If you were leading a country, arguably you would have probably do the same thing because human have on like a huge desire they have an unlimited desire for limited resource. All right. Human nature, they have an unlimited desire for limited resource. And when you do have the means, when you do have the power, you're going to exert those power to go after these resorts. Right now, what is the big resource of the world that the entire world wants, needs? Oil. The way that what happened in Ukraine right now, Russia, what Russia and like the relationship between Russia and Ukraine is the same relationship between Haiti and United States. To be honest with you guys, it's the same relationship. It's the same relationship between France and the countries of Africa. It's the same in the sense that a big superpower see a small country with lots of resources, they want to control it. They want to put their own puppets in power, right? They don't want the enemy's puppet to be in power, so they do whatever it takes to control it. And if they cannot control it by peace means, by manipulation, they'll control it by force, right? It's the same thing. In Haiti, they haven't used force in a while. But they have used lots of manipulation. And what they're using also, you're using Asian people against each other to fund terrorists not terrorists, to fund gangs, big money, big guns, supplying it to gangs so that the gang can create terror, and the terror makes it that the government cannot operate normally. And what happens in the back end, they're stealing resources. Now, Russia, apparently, the US doesn't want to buy Russian oil anymore, where the US is not, um, sus- cannot sustain their oil production at this point. They used to be self-sufficient. They no longer are. So they're looking at countries like my country, where there is huge reserve of oil in the southern of the country. I know that for a fact, and they know that too. There is lots of gold reserve in Haiti, untapped gold, because we don't have the means to do it. But we're living next to a big superpower who wants to control things, who see what's happening in the world, and knows that their decline is coming. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. And now, as we speak, there is a huge boat in my country. We're talking about, like, those boat that you can have like fighter jets on top of them. Well, there's a huge boat like that from the USA right at the shore of my countries, securing their resources because it's their country, not our country, right? That's how it is. That's how the game works. But the other things we know is desperate times call for desperate measures. And there is a pattern of when Democrats are losing popularity we're talking about the US here. When they are losing popularity, they seems to all of a sudden have a war. And it's not just Democrats. Because I remember when that happened with Bush, he was losing popularity all of a sudden out of nowhere. It's kind of like they read the stars, and for some random reason, war happens. What happens in war? Money gets printed. What happens in war? Money gets printed. More. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not money. You cannot print money because it's a limited resource, right? That's why you cut ties with real money so that you can have paper money, which is legal tender, whatever the legal system say it is. That's what it is. Now you have currency, which used to be a receipt for real money, is no longer a receipt anymore. It becomes money, but it's a paper currency that you can print at any time you want. What happens in a war? You print more currencies. Okay? So let's look back at 2008. What was happening then? And what was the price of gold in 2008? Remember I said this. Yes, gold could rise up all the way to $50,000 per ounce. But I also add in my thumbnail, in theory, there is a catch. In theory, yes, gold can do it, should do it, because we have all the conditions for it to happen. We have a declining empire, we have a rising empire. The world will need some stability. Why not go to what we know works is gold? Maybe we can pair that with the cryptocurrencies. But if the gold is rising, the US dollar is going to crash. We have been trying to control the price of precious metal for a long time. Once the US dollar crash, it's over. Gold is going to go to the moon. But desperate empires do desperate things. And they're going to find ways to prolong this as much as possible. And what better way to prolong this is to start or join, or just out of random war happens and you're like, you know what? These people need help, right? These people need help. I mean, Yemen need help, right? I mean, Bangladesh need help. Countries of Africa need help. But these people really need help, right? They just got off the countries. It's cold. These people live in a warm country. I mean, they need help, but they've been needing help for the last 10 years. But you know what? These people, we cannot let them have 1 month needing help. We have to act now, right? But when you go in a war, guys, war, you print money. What happens since 2009, 10, the Arab Spring, printing more money, stimulus package 1, 2, 3, we've been printing more money. The stock market pumps. The more money you print, the more the stock market goes. The higher the more stock market goes. And the higher the stock market goes, right? The more sideways gold stays. Hence, these times right here, right? 2008, we had this. Then the more money you print, the higher the stock market goes, the lower this graph gets. But we're pretty low already. We're pretty low already. But now we're looking at a scenario where it seems that the government, the US government, is trying their best to go to war and print more money. I mean, they don't really want to start World War III because we're talking about some nukes here, but they're not playing it safe to the point where they're just staying out of business. They're kind of like, some could say they're actually incentivize Russia to start this war, right? I was listening to Fox and I was surprised that someone in Fox was saying that yes, we do have chemicals labs in Ukraine right next to Russia. We do have labs. I mean, we USA have labs in Ukraine, chemical labs that can create biological weapon, and then now we're worried about Russia starting a war. What are you doing having a lab there? Like you don't have a land to do it somewhere else? Hey, I know they could have done it in my country. Why there? Why? It's because they want this random act of war that they can say, hey, this is happening. We need to print money. And the more money is being printed, the more we can kind of keep this bubble around alive. And let me show you something else, guys. Let me show you something else. Let me show you what happens where every party in this war is winning except Ukraine. And do I care about Ukraine? No. But what I've been doing these days, guys, I've been watching, I've been listening, and I've been observing. What have I been doing, guys? I've been watching, I've been listening, and I've been observing very, very carefully because this is a huge opportunity for me to learn global economy, geopolitics, how it works, and how it influences the market. This is like once, maybe twice in a lifetime, in a situation like this, and this is once in a lifetime or a generation, 2 generation, 6 generation, 10 generation that you're going to see a falling empire and a rising of another empire clashing out, right? So I've been watching very carefully. Also understand where me, us black people can win something out of this because the best way that we can win out of all this is when those two big powers are too busy fighting each other's and us we can slightly get something along the way, right? Because if there is no war, if there's no conflict, they have too much time to focus on us and making sure that we don't move to the next step. But I've been watching, listening, and learning. And let me tell you something that I found out. Again, guys, something that randomly happens. Politicians cares about being reelected. It's not like China, it's not like Russia where you can just say, "Hey, I'm president for life." They have to be, democratic. They have to win the public opinion. They have to control it in a way, manipulate in a way to make sure that they are on top. They're showing the public that they're doing their job so that the public can re-elect them. Right? Now let me show you something. We're gonna look at Mr. Boris Johnson, who is, let's just say, leader of UK. December 10th, 2021. You guys see this? I want you guys to see this. December 10th, 2021, Boris Johnson's approval rating drops to all-time low. All-time low, right? But remember what I said, guys. For these guys, leaders of democratic countries, they care about being reelected. Okay? Now, look after the war. I mean, we're not done the war yet. We're still in war, right? Russia and Ukraine are still in war. The UK is, right after USA in sanctions. They have tranche of sanctions, and look at what's happening right now, guys. War started in February 24th, 2022. Boris Johnson's approval rating sees popularity grow for the first time in 8 months. That was just weeks after the war started. But in December, the ratings were at all-time low. Interesting, right? Interesting. Now, the question is why all of a sudden the public has a higher approval rating for PM Boris Johnson? Why? What happened in between that made this rise? And for what purpose are they tracking this? Elections? Maybe. Let's look at Mr. Mediator. The Mediator. I'm just here to be the mediator between the US, the US and Russia. I'm not here to do, I don't want to fight. I'm here for peace. Zen, right? I'm Mr. Macron. I care about my country. I care also about my fellow Ukrainian. And we need to understand. We need to understand what's in the mind of Mr. Putin right here, right? We need to understand what's going on. Again, guys, I'm going somewhere with this. Follow me. I did mention gold is going to $50,000 per ounce, but there is a catch. There is a catch. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It might happen a lot later than we think. But we need to understand what's happening here, because what's happening here is will have its impact on our pockets. And let me go back again. Let me show you the pattern. Mr. Macron, which is what? French president. What is the date for this article? January 23rd, 2022. Literally a month before the war. Macron's approval rating falls to 37% as French election looms. Interesting. Now, when do you think the election is coming for French? For the French people? When? Next month? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Again, Mr. Mediator, right? What is the Mr. Mediator saying? The worst is yet to come. We're here for our population. We want to accept Ukrainian people, right? We want to be helpful to them. We don't want a war. We want to be the mediator. But at the same time, we're NATO countries, right? We're NATO countries. We're talking a lot of things, but we're not doing much, basically, right? But at the same time, how is that helping him? Well, a month before, he had some issues with government. He had issues with where his enemies was coming for his neck. He was going to lose the war. He was going to lose the elections. That's what media was putting out there, that it's obvious he's going to lose the election. But now he's gathering all the airtime from mediating between the West, or he's technically part of the West, but mediating between the United States and, right? Mediating between the United States and Russia, grabbing all the air times, less times for his competitor that's coming from his neck. And that's how, although his popularity is not necessarily rising, but people are seeing more of him, less of the competitors. They're not listening, they're not hearing what the competitors have to say. And that's how he plans on winning the election next month. Macron seeks to a second term in France, April's presidential vote. All right, look at his face. All right. In a letter to the French people, Emmanuel Macron pledged to find a French and European singular response to the world's challenge. He was right in front of mediation between the benefit, but the what the French needed to have from this war, and also making sure that the U.S. understand that hey, they cannot they need Russia's oil to survive, right? So they're trying to find peace in times of war, right? We talk about Boris Johnson. We talked about Boris Johnson before, right? Now, let's look at Mr. Trudeau, the Canadian government. Now, do you guys remember the trucker situation? Remember the trucker situation? How Mr. Trudeau was running? He was running, guys. He was running. He did not want to. He did not want anything to do with the truckers. He was running. But a month later, look at that. January 25th, cursed by a catastrophically low approval rating. And we're gonna get to Joe Biden, guys, because he's the whole is the reason why I'm making this segment on my stream. But Joe Biden is very low, lower than Trump. But Trudeau was so bad that he was even lower than Biden. That was in January 25th. Catastrophically low approval rating. Joe Biden is still more popular than Trudeau. Canadian Prime Minister typically skate by weight approvals rating that would be career ending to US equivalent. All right. These approval ratings are so low that it would be a career ending. That means you're not just going to lose the next election, you'll just never be in politics again. This is how low it is. But he wrapped up this trucker situation very fast, and then the same week find its way in Europe, going to deal with the Russians. Right. And I couldn't find this article before the video started, but there was another video saying that, hey, since Trudeau was taking good care of the Ukrainian, right? He was talking tough with them. His approval rating started to go up, but I couldn't find exactly this article. But his approval rating was so high that even after the war situation, they're saying that it's still high. And it's saying that Justin Trudeau approval rating in taters, PM losses, the plot with protest crackdown. So basically saying that, hey, he's still living the effects of this crackdown because the way he deal with it. And that leads me to Biden, right? That leads me to Biden. I want you to see a pattern here. What is the date for this article? Published February 18. Couple days before the war started. Why Biden is now less popular than Trump? He earned it. He earned it. He earned being less popular than Trump. We're talking about 4 days, about 6 days before the Ukrainian war started. All right. Biden now, March 18, a couple days ago, this article published. Biden's sleeping popularity is not helped by Russia-Ukraine war stance. But if you listen to the State of the Union, he was starting to get people on board. He was starting to get his party involved. And that's a good sign that, hey, if the war continues, he's going to rise in popularity. And when is the U.S. elections? It's at the end of what? This year, November, sometime this year. So what does that tell us? What is the pattern that we're seeing? War is good for business. And what business are we talking about here? Business of being president, business of being the leader of the country. War is good for business, for the West. And what happens in war? More tension war, more money being printed. People are undecisive. They're holding their money, reducing the velocity that we talked about earlier. Less velocity, more money printed. You keep that bubble inflated, and that's another way to manipulate gold prices. Gold prices will not continue to blow up if these scenarios happen. But the minute we start war, the minute that the U.S. is losing its value over time, inflation will go up again. Yes, but now we're in a scenario where we are in war, but we're not really in war. You see what I'm saying? And this is a dangerous scenario for gold, because we're not necessarily in a scenario where that going to start getting gold to blow up right now. We're teasing it, but at the same time, we're teasing that gold is going to blow up, but at the same time, we're taking measures to print more money so that gold can stay the way it is right now. And what's going to happen when we print more money? The market bubble stays up. The market stays more inflated. Biden needs to tackle two things. He needs to tackle first his approval rating by looking tough to Russia. And the big reason why there is a war in the first place, guys, and let me look at you in the eyes as I said this, the big reason why there is a war in the first place is because of inflation rising, which is critical because at the time that this is coming, it is the end of the empire. This could lead straight to the end of the empire. Desperate empire do desperate things, even trigger wars with other countries so that they can have an excuse to look tough, to also print money, to keep that system running. But it's a system that is doomed regardless of what they do. All they're trying to do is push the can down the road so that it doesn't happen on their watch. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to extend it as long as possible. And what Biden wants is to be reelected. But what he definitely does not want, like to lose the elections in the midterm and be less powerful than he was. He doesn't want that. So he's going to buy as much time as possible by playing war without being in war. By starting by sending our first president or vice president to laugh in the face of people or making things worse without actually being there and supporting Ukrainians. Tease Ukrainian that they can have all the support they need, and when Ukraine actually do need the support, back away saying that, hey, we don't want to start World War III, right? Just so that it's a loop, right? It's a loop. Keep playing the loop. What Russia gets out of it? Well, I guess Russia is like, well, we're going to be the superpower that we always thought we were. We're going to take that country and we're going to make sure that that country is going to stay for us. I bet you what's going to happen towards the end of the year is they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal where they're going to have to ask Zelensky to leave power. So the whole time war did not happen, right? Towards the end, toward very close to the elections, I'm talking about the US elections. You're going to see a deal will be made, but it's not going to be the USA like backing down and not look tough. It's going to be the pressure is going to be on Zelensky to leave and let Russia basically take Ukraine, put his own puppet, just like what happened in Crimea, right? Now, by that way, popularity will be just enough for him to still maintain some level of power. It would look tough that he didn't back down to terrorists. And he's still blaming Putin every chance he gets. Putin is responsible for his war. And Zelensky will lose. Russia will gain. And then right after, he's going to push the war talk again, but it's not going to be with Russia, it's going to be with China. You can already see this happening right now. They're threatening China, but Chinese are playing the long-term game. The Chinese people are smart. They are playing the long-term game. They don't really want to be officially for Russia, but they're watching Chinese interests, which is closely tied to the Russian dynamic, right? So they say we're watching for Chinese interests, but at the same time, we want to stay neutral and we're calling for peace. That was a smart move from China to control the narrative and say we want peace. We're urging you guys to sit down and talk for peace, and they want to do that as early as possible because why? They know the game from Biden perspective. You want to extend it as long as possible. Them they're calling for peace as early as possible. Genius. They're not playing the game. But what's going to happen, guys, is right after that settle, Biden's going to go right after because the real fight that he's doing, guys, is fighting the inflation. He cannot let inflation go out of realm, and at the same time, he's also fighting interest rate. If we're not at war, we're going to have to rise the interest rate. But if we do that, we're going to crash the market. So he's playing a sector where I don't want to rise the interest rate. I don't really want to go to war, but I want to be able to prepare for war. And how do we prepare for war? We print more money, which extend the time, which doesn't let gold skyrocket all the way to the top. Stock market are booming. Everyone's making money. Their pensions are looking good. I get reelected. Boom, market crash. That's the play, guys. So there is a catch. It may not be as quick as you think it is. Gold could blow up, will blow up, but it may not be as quick as you think it is. We're going to have to see how the dynamic is playing between these countries and see what happens. But based on what's happening right now, it seems that by somewhere September, October, we're going to have the deal wrapping up with Russia and Ukraine. Russia is going to be the winner. Zelensky is going to be out. Russia is going to put their puppet in Ukraine. They're not going, Biden is going to say, hey, I told you guys he was going to do all that. I give you all the information. We give them sanctions. We didn't want to go start a World War III. We give them sanctions, blah, blah, blah. We still look tough. It's not like we had to bow down to the demand of Putin because we did not want to bow down to the demand of Putin, which is all he asks is make sure that this country never reach the European Union or NATO. That's all he asked. And he said, hey, you write it in paper. We didn't bow down to the demand of Putin. We still didn't do anything he asked, but Putin's gonna get what he wants in the first place by making sure that this country is for him. He runs it, right? So he's hoping that the popularity will rise just enough so that he can stay in power. And then after, he's going to have to fight. The real fight is the inflation. How do I make sure I print enough money to make everyone happy, but not too much so that I blow up the market? How do I control the interest rate so that I don't necessarily increase the interest rate and I give a valid reason why by war talk? And that's when China / Taiwan is going to get into play. That's the next move. And all that, it's in the realm of making sure that the US stays as long as possible as the world reserve currency, as the power. But we've already seen what China is doing, right? China is talking to Saudi Arabia about buying their oil in yuan. That's a declaration of war when it comes to the US. The table are already set for the next play. The only reason why it won't happen right away is because of popularity. But desperate measurements do desperate things. And if we're like May, June, July, we're not seeing any progress from the Ukrainian war increasing the popularity of Biden, then next thing you know, I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive with China so that they can look more tough and then still find a way to get elected. It's really a political play that's happening here that is resulting in people's wealth disappearing, that is resulting in people's life in Ukraine disappearing and displacement. It is just a pawns. Everyone has something to gain out of this, slash Mr. Boris Johnson, slash Mr. Macron, slash Mr. Justin Trudeau, slash everyone else involved. Everyone has their part to gain out of this. Slash Putin, slash Biden. But the stress is on him. He needs this war to stay alive. The other ones don't. But he's the more powerful, so he has the big guns to trigger the war to make it happen. That's where we are right now. And the longer he extends the war and not make it happen, the worse it is for gold. But the minute that the minute the war starts to happen and then they start sprinting money, gold is not really going to rise right away. What needs to happen is people lose confidence on US dollars and get the US dollar crash. But the way that I'm seeing him setting up the stage, I don't know. I have to worry about him manipulating the situation and being in the loop, kind of like, I want to be in war, or I don't want to be in war, but I want to be ready for war. And if he does that for the next 2 years, well, it gives you 2 years to load up on gold, which is technically a good thing. It gives you 2 years to load up on gold, but it just means that it's not going to be as fast as you think it is. Right? But that's my thesis in this. Yes, gold will rise up. At the end of the cycle, which we're seeing that it could be around 2030, that's when the World Reset, the World Economic Forum is pushing for the big reset to happen, right? 2030, they're selling it to the public, and we already see the system that's going to be there. It's going to be some kind of cryptocurrency backed by gold, where you better play ball if you want to be able to spend that money. But in between, what can happen? Right now, we have to deal with the current president, Biden. What does he want? He wants to be reelected. All right. What does he has to do? He has to make sure he rise from the polls. And what we have seen in history is not just now, guys. Whenever in history a president is low on ratings, somehow there is a war, and somehow they are on top of it, and somehow the rating rise, right? Somehow. And now Mr. Biden, he has the lowest rating of all time. Can you imagine that he has lower rating than Trump? So you can imagine how low his rating really is. And there is obviously a war. And China is calling for peace. He's calling for more war by making sure that he's threatening China for sanctions. And China is still calling for peace. Right? That's a beautiful play from China because they know what they're doing. They know what Biden really wants out of it, but they're playing the long-term games. Before, after Biden, it's going to be the same regime in China. So they don't care. They're playing the long game. Let's have peace. Let's have peace. Biden's like, no, war. I'm going to section you right now. Peace, my man. Peace. But that's how it is, guys. That's how it is. In the meantime, they're making sure that they're securing their oil reserve in Haiti, their gold reserve in Haiti, by having, I think I saw it earlier, by having all sorts of guns and U.S. Carrier. That's what I was looking for. U.S. Carrier, Peter Investor. Shout out to you. But let me go to the comment section. Sorry, guys, I've been missing a lot of comment section as I was going to this. But that's my take in it. to wrap up, guys, that's my take in it. My take in it is yes, gold will rise, but it's not going to be as quick as you think it is, because it's in Biden's interest to make it last as long as possible. And rising golds means a falling US dollars. And he better do that after he gets reelected as opposed to before he gets reelected. And now we're just at the midterm elections. So there's a lot of time to go, right? But that's also a great move for you, because you know the cycle, you know how it's going to end. You can start loading up now and sit back, relax, and enjoy the. I don't know if it's going to be fun, but enjoy it, right? US cars. Shut up. All right, all right, all right. The bankster makes money. Yes, war is a racket. War is a racket. There's the banks makes more money because the more money being printed, the more interest rate is being added to the nation, and interest rates. That's how banks makes money, right? Let me see. I am observing as well geopolitics learning. Yes, this is a great way to learn because you don't see this a lot, but I've been watching, observing, and listening very carefully, guys. And for the whole purpose of keeping multiplying money, because we got to get something out of this, right? If every country is and a superpower is getting something out of this, what is in it? What's in it for us? That's the question we need to start asking. What's in it for us? Right? We gotta start asking those questions. Once we start asking those questions, that's how we get to the wealth. Let me see. This thing is pretty bright today. But anyway, but yeah, great point. Great point. Let me see. I don't think England has a term limit either for the prime minister. Yes, but they can always change him, right? Especially if his ratings are low, they can always change him. It's the same way Canada works. If he gets reelected, fine. If not, replace him by someone else. And Trudeau is doing pretty bad right now, so it's going to be they're going to be double motivated to keep this war going, to keep the pressure on without going to war. Because we're playing with nukes here. There is always a necessary evil involved, just saying. Yeah. Salute to you, Need Watches. How are you doing? Yes, the truckering situation had everyone losing money. Yes, especially the truckers. But they expose the dictatorship that we're living in. They exposed it. And then if this is what we have right now, imagine what's coming later. That's all I got to say. Card Black, weak as hell. We're still holding him accountable. Yes. Yeah, he is trying to use the word to distract from this nonsense. The conservatives are emerging. The problem is, man, this is the same thing Boris Johnson is doing right now. The longer this war lasts, remember what happened? All of a sudden, there's no CV-19 anymore. The minute the war starts, everyone CV-19 just disappear out of the face of the earth. Like China right now is dealing with a huge outbreak of the Omicron variant, but never hear anything about it. No, what's more important right now is the war. It's the war, and how our president is looking tough, right? To rise, to get those numbers rising, to try to over time, guys. Just wait 3 months. Most people will forget about that. Just wait. The masses, don't forget about that, man. But hey, I won't. But we'll see, and we'll see. I hope they keep him accountable all the way through. But someone else will take his space and do the same thing all over again. He's a dumb trust fund baby that never works in a day in his life and have no business in politics. Absolutely. The live stream that Trashkin did about Biden owning Ukraine money, the situation with Hunter and his drug habits was a wake up call. I was appalled. Yeah, I mean, there's a lots to go about that. They won't necessarily want to talk about all that, right? But it's a lot deeper than that. Let's go, Brendan. The Saudis did not even take his phone call. all Western credibility lost. Absolutely. And then again, that's what I'm saying. They're going to have to escalate that to a whole new level, especially now. Saudi was talking with China as this is a very dangerous move. This is a declaration of war. When Saudi are talking and considering using yuan to buy um, Saudi's oil as opposed to the US dollar, this is a declaration of war. Biden or any president in the United States cannot afford this to happen because the China is going to set the trend for other countries to do so, like Russia, like all the India, like all the countries around the East. China is going to send the trend, and if they don't stop China, it's going to be severe for them. But how do you do that and look good in front of the public, right? You can't. So you're going to have to do it after the midterm election or maybe even after the second term election, right? But something's going to happen, I think, right after November, December, and that's going to be involve China. And I think the more time goes by, the more we're going to see China involved in this, which is why now they're calling for peace. They're playing this move great. Okay, peace. We want you guys to have peace between each other. We don't want to be involved in this. Smart move. Smart move. Ukraine is collateral damage. Yeah, yeah. Smaller countries always are. Collateral damage. When the big superpowers are playing their games, their world domination games, it's always the small countries that gets the full brunt of it. Their bombs are being exposed in their location. They're using Ukraine as a battleground and not their own city, right? If there is nuke involved, at least it's going to be Ukraine and not the US or Russia. All right. But the real reason, guys, which and that was surprising to us to hear a representative of the US government saying that yes, we do have biological labs in Ukraine. Right? At least I would expect them to lie and say no. Russian generals are saying, yes, we did find labs, which I thought they were playing the same thing as Bush. Oh, there is weapon of mass destructions there. We need to go there and destroy everything. I thought Russia was saying the same thing, the same play from Bush. We see chemical labs there. We need to go out there and destroy everything. But then US is like, no, we do have labs there, and we are afraid that they're going to use that against us. Wait a second. What were you doing there? Why are you admitting this? What are you? This is not going to be a short-term thing. They want to extend this as much as possible, and they're incentivizing Russia to act. They anticipated their action, and they're pushing it because it's good for the business. It's good for their approval rating. It's good for being reelected, and it's going to last. That's their plan, to have the world reserve currency last as long as possible by war, pretending to have war, not real wars. Getting the war on terror last 20 years, right? Same play. It's the same thing setting up again. Just a new, now it's not going to be the Middle East anymore. It's going to be the Western, Europe East, Asia. Same thing setting up again. A scenario, they kind of crack the code to print money as much as possible. Have a war that never stops. All right. I'm planning to open an interactive broker account and buy some Chinese currency. Uh, currency, when it comes to currency, man, I don't even want to look at currencies, no matter how it is. How to you before the billion, but up to you, man. Go for it. Russia has destroyed Ukraine so badly that it appears to be targeting where refugees are going next. Yeah. Yeah. And that's how it starts. They always start slow and then they're going to ramp up. They're going to ramp up, giving more fuel to Biden to say, hey, he's a war dictator, he's a war criminal and all that, and not doing much. Playing the game. Sophia, he's tried that with an Indian claiming her to black. What? Sophia, he tried that with an Indian claiming her to be black, knowing he is pulling the stunt. He told Black America he will not do anything for them. Let's go. Who's Brendan? I don't know who's Brendan. But hey, man, you guys, you know how politics works by now. I don't need to tell you that politician lies. What's up, man? Great team, great live stream the other day. Oh, I didn't check it out. I gotta go check it out. Need watches. The market should have been crashed of a decade ago. Too much funny money. Exactly. That's my whole point of this stream. Yes, gold is, in theory, gold should already be rising, and gold should be heading towards its way to $50,000 per ounce. That's what gold should be doing in theory. But we gotta be careful about what we're seeing here, because there is the theory and then there is reality. And in reality, there is something that's happening here. There is a pattern of the West pushing Russia to trigger a war that they don't necessarily want to have, to get the money printed today, to get the approval rating up, to get the stock market pumping, which will keep gold slower, will keep the dollar slash stronger. And Biden's, if I could summarize Biden's whole plan, it's to make sure the dollar stays strong. Do whatever it takes so that the dollar stays strong. But the empires that are declining are desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and desperate empires do desperate things. And now remember, there is no way around it. Regardless of how they put it, it's going down. But they're trying to extend that time as long as possible. As long as possible on the way down. And the way that they're doing it right now is setting up the setting for another war that they don't really want to have. Right? It's either the war on bugs that gets them to print money, or the war on dictatorship. Now it's going to be a discussion about democracy between dictatorship, which is why I love China's play by saying, we are calling for peace. They don't want to play the game, and also they're playing the long-term game. Call for peace. Now they're making points in the narrative globally by saying, hey, he said we're bad people. We just want peace. Oh Lord, but you're right, Mr. Carl Black. They should have the market should have been crashed. They're not. And it's the same reason why we need to be worried. When you're investing for gold, you need to be aware. And you need to listen, learn, observe what's happening in the market right now and see where that goes. But what we do know is inflation will be rising. Inflation has been rising month over month, and going from 1.7% all the way to 7.9%, right? So we do know this is happening. So, so one good way to protect yourself against inflation, precious metal. So from that perspective, yes, but we also see some manipulation that will continue to happen, and if this continues, we may not see the exponential rise that we think we're going to see, but you're going to have to wait. It might happen in the next 2 years. We're going to have to see how the next 2 years is gonna go. But in the meantime, I'm starting to buy gold in the form of with Pax Gold. That's the way I choose to buy it for now. For now, we'll see how it goes in the future. But for now, that's the way I'm putting some money out there just in case. Just in case. But am I selling the sink for that? No. But just in case you want to protect some of your purchase power, put some in precious metal. Go with strong fundamentals. Strong fundamental cryptocurrencies. That's where I'm investing right now. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. Salute fam. Hey, salute Leverson. How are you doing? Sorry, guys. I'm still catching up on so many chat. The deal must be made. Keep in mind, folks, both the eagle and the bear don't really want war because they're interested in the form of investment on both sides. Absolutely. A deal will be made, and it will be Zelensky is going to go out. Let Putin put his puppet there. But only when all the parties get what they want. Meaning, right now, the European governments are getting their popularity up, but not the Americans and the Canadians. So they gotta keep the war going on so that their popularity can go up. All right. But I think it's too late for. I think the one that has it the worst here is Justin Trudeau, man. Justin Trudeau, there's no way to save him. If he gets out of this alive, man, oh my god. But he's going to be I don't know. But right now he's the pawn of the US. So who knows? Let's see what's happening here. In 2020, we blame CV-19. In 2022, we blame the war. Yes. And in 2023, we'll blame Putin also for inflation and gas prices instead of the US government that printed 40%, that raised all that made all this happen. You notice the inflation was rising up before the war. The inflation price was rising well before the war. All right. Re-election ain't going to happen for Biden. I'll be the first with a pick for it. We'll see. Is President Z is not ready to move? Not military, no. But man, everything else, man. Who's Brendan? Let me see. Brendan actually thinks he sanctioned the Red Dragon. Go ahead and watch the Walmart shelf go empty. Yeah. They have a lot of leverage. They don't need to go to military war. They have too much leverage. Let's see what's going on. Man, I miss so many chat. So how do you edge against what's happening to make money? Great question. Let me get back to this question. We're going to conclude with this one. Salute to you, Mr. Peter Investor. Let's see. Did I miss any more big question? Z told Vlad to wait till after the Olympics. They knew, and it's still well planned. They have an alternative financially. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Let's see. Hey, how are you doing, Lashes? Congrats on getting 1K subscribers. Holy cow. What's going on here? 50 sorry for this. I was going to the chat and didn't see this earlier. Thank you very much, Mr. Leave in a Sand. By the way, guys, go check out his channel. Very great channel. Condensed information, well narrative, well edited. Huge respect for this brother Live in a Sand. Great voice, great lots of talent as a YouTuber. And I predict his channel is going to do very well if he keeps this up. So go make sure you go subscribe to his channel, guys, and support. Tell him Wealth Engineering sent you guys. But thank you very much for this $50 super chat and the sponsor of this stream. And these super chats really help, guys, because even when you get monetized, you don't get much in your views, and you don't get much money, and it takes a lot of effort, guys, to get these streams running and to get these videos pumping. So any donation, I really appreciate it. But shout out to you, respectively, Mr. Leave in a Sand. Truly appreciated this. And let's say, well done research and point of view. But I have to say, precious metal and commodities is the way to secure finances. Patience is key. Great stream, my friend. Going back to Mr. Peter Investor M, yes, this is definitely the safest way to play it. The safest way to play it. If you want to play it long term, gold and silver, especially silver, is the way to go. But there are some factors at play here that's going to make this last a long time. And we've seen what happens in 2008. Gold price was supposed to skyrocket then, but stimulus after stimulus, and then money being printed, the dollars, stock buybacks, and all that. Turns out gold was just slowly rising until it was like stable for a while. But yet the stock market was booming. And what did Ray Dalio taught us? The more money being printed, the higher the stock goes. And right now we're seeing the situation are being set for more money to be printed. So we have to watch out on how we play this. But to be safe, I'm out of the stock market and I'm starting to be invested in gold, but I'm still playing it. I mean, I'm always 100% cryptocurrency. So That's where I stand. But this year is the year for me to diversify a bit. But so I'm not 100% at this time, but I'm going to be less and less and focusing on fundamental cryptos and more like lands, for example, and gold. That's my play for this year. But thank you very much. Truly appreciate it, Mr. Leave and Ascend, and make sure you check out his channel, guys. Let's see what's going on. They are calling for peace, but just finished water hosing college student protesting a couple years. Oh yeah, yeah, pure hypocrisy at its best. Yep, hypocrisy. Right, African visionaries. Salute, salute. How are you doing, sir? Thank you for being here. Mr. T9 leaves and running out is really not like that. Mr. T, oh, you're talking about Trudeau leaves in running out is really not like that here in Canada. The people are fed up of his nonsense. Happy to hear that, man. Gosh, monetization, that thing is so close yet so far from me. Yes, it's not all that when you get it, man. When you get it, get 1 cent per video. So you're gonna have to work a lot harder if you want those money to come in. But that's why donations really help, and any support you can get helps. And thank you again, Mr. Live and Ascend. But that's basically it. Yes, let me go tackle elaborate more on this question. How do you edge against what's happening to make money? I want to bring it back. Uh, I have a course, guys, right? The wealth engineering called technical investor, but feel generous today. I love Mike's Maloney philosophy. And let me summarize very quickly his philosophy. If Luke identified assets class, you understand the pattern. Every asset class has a cycle, real estate, business, like whatever you name it, right? Has a cycle. You understand, you try to time when the cycle from one asset class is at the top and then when the cycle of another asset class is at the bottom, and he's looking for the convergence. It's the same thing. Let me show you my thumbnail. It's the same pattern that you see for empires. In fact, I know for a fact a lot of his philosophy comes from studying empires. And that's why it's so far, I haven't met one person online who've taught me so much about investing and understanding how the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth factors into your everyday dollar. So I made this for a reason, right? See this going down, but there was a time the blue arrow was going up, right? 200 years ago, it was on its way up. Starting in the 70s, we kind of like started decline, and now we're well on our way down. In the same time, 70s, China is starting to go up. Now, what happens when we go up? At some points, to be all the way to the top, you need to lose tie with gold. So you're going to start to devalue gold with money. So basically, the US dollar was, let's say, $35 for 1 ounce. Is going to rise. Actually, maybe it was $18, $20 for an ounce, and then it's going to devalue to be $35 for an ounce. And now it's almost $2,000 for an ounce, right? That's what happens. You devalue, you print more currencies and you devalue it. It's equivalent in gold. So what Mike Maloney does, he identified assets class, gold, real estate, stocks, equities, right? And then he's looking at one asset class. He tries to be in it as it gets up. And then while it's rising up, it's looking at the other asset class and he's looking at something that is about to do something like this. And then when he sees this, he takes his profit from here and he buys it here. which is exactly why he's evaluating the commodities index versus the S&P 500. He's looking at his stocks and he's looking at the commodities and he's saying, hey, at this point, I can buy 7.5 times the, if I have gold, I can convert that and buy 7.5 times shares. So that to him is a great way to transition from gold to your equities, right? On a time like that, that would be a great time to go from stocks to commodities. And his commodities of choice is gold, right? So you get gold here, you sell it here. You get gold here, you sell it here. You get gold here, you sell it here. That's the way he plays it. If you were looking just at gold and commodities, me, I look at gold, commodities, real estate, and Bitcoin. I use the same philosophy and I apply it to cryptocurrencies. And now, last year, it was the perfect time for me to convert my stocks in cryptocurrencies, not gold, in cryptocurrencies. And that move allowed me to make 10 times more on my portfolio than I would have made in the stock market. Now, what am I doing? I'm looking at the crypto market and I'm looking at gold market and I'm also looking at the equity market. I know I'm too late for the real estate market, but at least I'm looking at the stock market and I'm looking at the gold market and I'm like, okay, how much higher do I project the current cryptocurrencies to go? How much should I allocate in stocks? How much should I allocate in gold? And right now, I haven't seen a scenario where I want to allocate much in stocks, but I do see a scenario where I want to allocate a lot of it in gold. That's how I play the game. So it really depends on your investing style. But to answer your question, how do you edge against what's happening to make money? You make sure you invest in assets that are going to gain value over time, that's going to maintain their purchase power over time, that's going to multiply. Because inflation are going high, you need something to get rise at least at the same rate as the inflation, so that for the very least you keep your purchase power. So that's what you do. And me, I'm looking at all equities. I'm looking at all the markets and see which one can do that for me. So now it seemed that it's a good choice for me to allocate a portion of my portfolio into gold. I have already started allocating in some in real estate, not in North America, in other countries where I can find deals that are super undervalued. And the minute I buy it, I'm already up $25,000 on my investment, which is almost 30, which is actually, which is almost 40% of the price that I paid for it in profit. I haven't sold it yet, but I'm technically, if I would already be up 40%. That's the kind of move I make. I don't buy things when they're top of the market. The same thing I learned from Mr. Mike Maloney. I apply that into different settings. I look at, okay, when is the bottom and when is it going up? I jump at it. I jump at it at the bottom. I wait for it to go up. I do that for real estate. I do that for cryptos. I do that for commodities, gold. Gold is a great way to keep money. Crypto is a great way to multiply money. Shares with dividends, you can keep and multiply money if you play it well. And business is a way to multiply money too if you can find a successful business out there, which is another thing I'm doing with my crypto investments. I'm putting it into some business. Part of that is the YouTube business and see how that goes. So that's why I've been pumping and investing into my YouTube channel, which is why donations like this helps, because technically I'm losing money in my business right now. Lots of times and effort, not much profit. So it will take a lot more effort and time to get there, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But that's how you play the game, Peter Investor M. You find assets that are at least going to rise or maintain the same rate at inflation. Because if you don't, you're going to lose money. Inflation is going to erode your purchase power. So you need that. And one cool way to do it is with gold. Shout out to Live in a Sen with his comment here, right? Commodities, oil, gold, something of value that the world needs. These, when in times of crisis, humans will always drive towards the needs, not the wants. The needs, commodities, utilities, things that people need, people will always go there. All right. Let's see. Did I miss any more questions? Sorry. But I hope that answers the question, Mr. Peter Investor M. I'm acquiring more silver as time progress, only keep a minimum in the capital market. Yes, great point. Capital market. If talking about equities, yeah. Minimum. Me, I'm completely out. And that timing that I did it is the most beautiful timing of my life. In this January last year, I sold all my stocks. I put all of it in crypto that same freaking month. Foo, foo. But I couldn't find something else to put it into, so I kept it in cryptocurrencies. I'm still up, and I cashed out a lot at the end of the year, beginning of 2022. Now I'm putting it into real estate, putting it in some of it in gold. I'm getting ready to sell another position that I had, getting ready for what's coming, right? Because yeah, when stock crashes, crypto doesn't necessarily crash a bit, recover, but it stays sideways. And there is too much uncertainty right now to stay long term in some of my positions. But I'm going to talk a lot more about that on my Discord/Patreon. So if you guys are really interested in that, you can let me know. I can elaborate on that on my Patreon. But hey, I gave a lot of games already, guys. That is the exact correct play for precious metal and commodities. That's what I do, and that's how to play them. Never just hold without managing them. You will lose if you do. Absolutely, yes. That's a fact. If you, Mike Maloney does very good videos about that. If you hold gold long enough, you realize that you're not going to necessarily make money, but you got to understand the timing, the cycle, and sell it at the top. And if you do that, then yeah, you can. Whew, you do that 3 times, you'll have generational wealth. I go over that on my course. A way to read the cycle and do it 3 times and get generational wealth. But you don't get opportunities like that every year. If it could be 5, 8 years. So, but yeah, man. So fact of 20 years, you can build generational wealth, like not just wealth for you, like wealth for you and your kids. Thank you. This channel is a gem. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Great stream. I'm gonna wrap up too. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Investor M, for your donation, and salute to you for being a member and donate as well. Mad respect. And thank you for no worries, man. No worries. It's my pleasure. With that said, is gold going to 50,000 an ounce? Maybe, possibly. But we got to watch out for what's going on. We got to keep our eyes open. In the same way gold prices were manipulated, we got to be sure, because high gold means low US dollars. And right now, Biden's sole mission, despite of everything he says, despite of everything he does, his true mission out there is to make sure that the US dollar stays the world reserve currency as long as possible, especially while he's in his power. Before before you transition to the next one, or if he gets reelected before his before the end of his second term, right? That's what he wants. Now, if this happens at the second term, it's too late. He's not going to be reelected again, so he doesn't care. But he's going to try to push the can at least until he get reelected, which we're talking about a 2-year margin. So we can buy it now. We know inflation is rising. We know gold has to match inflation price at some point, but we got to understand too that we are bigger, uncontrollable forces that are affecting our wealth, that is controlling the price of silver and gold. Why? Because high gold price means low US dollars, but it also means Russia and and China are buying it at mass, getting ready for the transition, getting ready for the CBDC pair with gold, and they're building their gold reserves while us here, we're dumping it, right? So with that said, that's what I wanted to talk today. A very great stream. Thank you again for the sponsors of the stream. And we'll see on the next one. Shout out to you. We'll tune in Wednesday.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts, time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks in business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth till you living like Scrooge McDuck.